Minnesota is a state in the upper Midwestern region of the United States. It is bordered by the Canadian provinces of Manitoba and Ontario to the north and east, and by the U.S. states of Wisconsin to the east, Iowa to the south, and North Dakota and South Dakota to the west. It is the 12th largest U.S. state in area and the 21st most populous, with about 5.7 million residents. Minnesota is known as the land of 10,000 lakes and has 14,420 bodies of fresh water covering at least 10 acres each. Roughly a third of the state is forested. Much of the remainder is prairie and farmland. More than 60% of Minnesotans, about 3.8 million, live in the Minneapolis and St. Paul metropolitan area, known as the Twin Cities, the state's main political, economic, and cultural hub, and the 16th largest metropolitan area in the U.S. Other minor metropolitan and micropolitan statistical areas include Duluth, Mankato, Moorhead, Rochester, and St. Cloud. Minnesota, which gets its name from the Dakota language, has been inhabited by various Native Americans since the woodland period of the 11th century BCE. Between roughly 200 and 500 CE, two areas of the indigenous Hopewell tradition emerged: the Laurel Complex in the north and Trempealeau Hopewell in the Mississippi River Valley in the south. The Upper Mississippian culture, consisting of the Winota people and other Siouan speakers, emerged around 1000 CE and lasted through the arrival of Europeans in the 17th century. French explorers and missionaries were the earliest Europeans to enter the region, encountering the Dakota, Ojibwe, and various Anishinaabe tribes. Much of what is now Minnesota formed part of the vast French holding of Louisiana, which the United States purchased in 1803. After several territorial reorganizations, the Minnesota Territory was admitted to the Union as the 31st state in 1858. Minnesota's official motto, L'Étoile du Nord, the Star of the North, is the only state motto in French. This phrase was adopted shortly after statehood and reflects both the state's early French explorers and its position as the northernmost state in the contiguous U.S. As part of the American frontier, Minnesota attracted settlers and homesteaders from across the country. Its growth was initially based on timber, agriculture, and railroad construction. Into the early 20th century, European immigrants arrived in significant numbers, particularly from Scandinavia, Germany, and Central Europe. Many were linked to the failed revolutions of 1848, which partly influenced the state's development as a center of labor and social activism. Minnesota's rapid industrialization and urbanization precipitated major social, economic, and political changes in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The state was at the forefront of labor rights, women's suffrage, and political reform. Consequently, Minnesota is unique among Midwestern states in being a relative stronghold of the Democratic Party, having voted for every Democratic presidential nominee since 1976, longer than any other U.S. state. Since the late 20th century, Minnesota's economy has diversified away from traditional industries such as agriculture and resource extraction to services, finance, and health care. It is consequently one of the richest states in terms of GDP and per capita income. Minnesota is home to 11 federally recognized Native American reservations, 7 Ojibwe, 4 Dakota, and its culture, demographics, and religious landscape reflect Scandinavian and German influence. In more recent decades, the state has become more multicultural, driven by both larger domestic migration and immigration from Latin America, Asia, the Horn of Africa, and the Middle East. The state has the nation's largest population of Somali Americans and second largest Hmong community. Minnesota's standard of living and level of education are among the highest in the U.S., and it is ranked among the best states in metrics such as employment, median income, safety, and governance. The common loon or great northern diver Gavia emer is a large member of the loon or diver family of birds. Breeding adults have a plumage that includes a broad black head and neck with a greenish, purplish, or bluish sheen, blackish or blackish-gray upperparts, and pure white underparts except some black on the undertail coverts and vent. Non-breeding adults are brownish with a dark neck and head marked with dark gray-brown. Their upperparts are dark brownish-gray with an unclear pattern of squares on the shoulders, and the underparts, lower face, chin, and throat are whitish. The sexes look alike, though males are significantly heavier than females. During the breeding season, loons live on lakes and other waterways in Canada, the northern United States including Alaska, and southern parts of Greenland and Iceland. Small numbers breed on Svalbard and sporadically elsewhere in Arctic Eurasia. Common loons winter on both coasts of the U.S. as far south as Mexico, and on the Atlantic coast of Europe. Cypripedium regini, known as the showy lady's slipper, pink and white lady's slipper, or the queen's lady's slipper, is a rare lady's slipper orchid native to northern North America. Although never common, this plant has vanished from much of its historical range due to habitat loss. Pinus resinosa, known as red pine, also Norway pine in Minnesota, is a pine native to eastern North America. There are 87 counties in the U.S. state of Minnesota. There are also several historical counties. On October 27, 1849, 9 counties were established: Benton, Dakota, Itasca, Ramsey, Makota, Pembina, Wabasha, Washington, and Wanata. 6 of these names still exist. With the foundation of Kittson County on March 9, 1878, Pembina County no longer existed. When Minnesota was organized as a state, 57 of the present 87 counties were established. The last county to be created was Lake of the Woods County in 1923. The names of many of the counties allude to the long history of exploration. Over 10 counties are named for Native American groups residing in parts of what is now Minnesota. Another 15 counties are named after physical geographic features, and the remainder for politicians. The FIPS County Code is the 5-digit Federal Information Processing Standard FIPS code which uniquely identifies counties and county equivalents in the United States. The 3-digit number is unique to each individual county within a state, but to be unique within the entire United States, it must be prefixed by the state code. This means that, for example, the number 001 is shared by Aitkin County, Minnesota, Adams County, Wisconsin, and Adair County, Iowa. To uniquely identify Aitkin County, Minnesota, one must use the state code of 27 plus the county code of 001. Therefore, the unique nationwide identifier for Aitkin County, Minnesota is 27001. The links in the column FIPS County Code are to the Census Bureau info page for that county.
Top 10 largest cities in Minnesota.
Number 10, Blaine, Minnesota. Blaine is a suburban city in Anoka and Ramsey counties in Minnesota, United States. Once a rural town, Blaine's population has increased significantly in the last 60 years. For several years, Blaine led the Twin Cities metro region in new home construction. The population was 70,222 at the 2020 census. The city is mainly in Anoka County and is part of the Minneapolis and St. Paul metropolitan area. Interstate 35 West, U.S. Highway 10, and Minnesota State Highway 65 are 3 of the main routes in the city. Number 9, Lakeville, Minnesota. Lakeville is an exurb of Minneapolis and St. Paul and the largest city in Dakota County, Minnesota, United States. It is approximately 20 miles 32 kilometers south of both downtown Minneapolis and downtown St. Paul along Interstate Highway 35. Starting as a flourishing milling center, its agriculture industry and other major industries are still in operation. Lakeville is one of the fastest growing cities in the Twin Cities area. The population was 69,490 at the 2020 census, making it Minnesota's 10th most populous city. Lakeville first became notable in 1910 when Marion Savage built the Dan Patch Railroad line to service his Antlers amusement park. While many of Lakeville's workers commute northward to Minneapolis, St. Paul, and more central suburbs like Bloomington, Lakeville has had major industries since the 1960s, including the Air Lake Industrial Park, which is served by Air Lake Airport, a regional reliever airport. Number 8, Plymouth, Minnesota. Plymouth is a city in Hennepin County in the U.S. state of Minnesota, a suburb in the Minneapolis and St. Paul metropolitan area. The city is about 10 miles 16 kilometers west of downtown Minneapolis. The population was 81,026 at the 2020 census, making it Minnesota's 7th largest city. Number 7, Woodbury, Minnesota. Woodbury is a city in Washington County, Minnesota, United States, 8 miles and 13 kilometers east of St. Paul along Interstate 94. It is part of the Minneapolis and St. Paul metropolitan area. The population was 75,102 at the 2020 census, making it Minnesota's 8th most populous city. Number 6, Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. Brooklyn Park is a suburban city on the west bank of the Mississippi River, upstream from north of downtown Minneapolis in northern Hennepin County. It is the 6th largest city in the U.S. state of Minnesota. The population was 86,478 at the 2020 census. The city still has undeveloped land and farms, including the historic Item Homestead, a 1900s working farm that is a popular tourist attraction for families and school field trips. Brooklyn Park is considered both a second and third-tier suburb of Minneapolis because much of the land north of 85th Avenue was developed after 2000. WWE Hall of Fame wrestler Jesse Ventura served as mayor of Brooklyn Park from 1991 to 1995. He was elected governor of Minnesota in the 1998 election on a third-party ticket and served as governor from 1999 to 2003. Brooklyn Park is listed as a Tree City, USA and is home to 47 miles, 76 kilometers of trails and 67 parks, including Rush Creek Regional Trail and the northern section of Palmer Lake Park. The city is also known for Mississippi Gateway Regional Park, on the west side of Coon Rapids Dam Regional Park, Rasmussen University, North Hennepin Community College and a campus of Hennepin Technical College are in the city. Number 5. Bloomington, Minnesota. Bloomington is a city in Hennepin County, Minnesota, United States, on the north bank of the Minnesota River above its confluence with the Mississippi River, 10 miles 16 kilometers south of downtown Minneapolis and just south of the Interstate 494 and 694 Beltway. At the 2020 census, the city's population was 89,987, making it Minnesota's fourth largest city. Bloomington was established as a post-World War II housing boom suburb connected to Minneapolis's urban streets grid and is serviced by 4 major freeways: Interstate 35 West running north to south through the approximate middle of the city, Minnesota State Highway 77, also Sina Cedar Avenue, running north to south near the eastern end of the city, U.S. Highway 169, running north to south along the western boundary of the city, and Interstate 494 running east to west at the northern border. Minnesota State Highway 100 also terminates within city limits at Interstate 494. Large-scale commercial development is concentrated along the I-494 corridor. Besides an extensive city park system, with over 1,000 square feet 93 square meters of parkland per capita, Bloomington is also home to Highland Lake Park Reserve in the west and Minnesota Valley National Wildlife Refuge in the southeast. Bloomington has more jobs per capita than either Minneapolis or St. Paul, due in part to the United States' largest enclosed shopping center, the Mall of America, which is inside of this city. The headquarters of Ceridian, Donaldson Company, Great Clips, Dairy Queen, Health Partners, Holiday Station Stores, and Toro, and major operations of Pearson, General Dynamics, Seagate Technologies, Express Scripts, and are also based in the city. The city was named after Bloomington, Illinois. Number 4. Duluth, Minnesota. Duluth is a port city in the U.S. state of Minnesota and the county seat of St. Louis County. Located on Lake Superior in Minnesota's Arrowhead region, the city is a hub for cargo shipping. The population was 86,697 at the 2020 census, making it Minnesota's 5th largest city. Duluth forms a metropolitan area with neighboring Superior, Wisconsin, called the Twin Ports. It is south of the Iron Range and the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness. It is named after Daniel Graysolon, Sieur Duluth, the area's first known European explorer. Duluth is on the north shore of Lake Superior at the westernmost point of the Great Lakes. It is the largest metropolitan area, the second largest city, and the largest U.S. city on the lake. Duluth is accessible to the Atlantic Ocean 2,300 miles 3,700 kilometers away via the Great Lakes Waterway and St. Lawrence Seaway. The Port of Duluth is the world's farthest inland port accessible to ocean-going ships and is the largest and busiest port on the Great Lakes. It is also among the top 20 U.S. ports by tonnage. Common items shipped from Duluth include coal, iron ore, grain, limestone, cement, salt, wood pulp, steel coil, and wind turbine parts. Duluth is a popular Midwest tourist destination. The city is home to the Great Lakes Aquarium, the nation's only all-freshwater aquarium. The aerial lift bridge, next to Canal Park, crosses the Duluth Ship Canal into the Duluth Superior Harbor. Minnesota Point, known locally as Park Point, is the world's longest freshwater mammoth bar, stretching 6 miles 10 kilometers. The city is also the starting point for road trips along the north shore of Lake Superior to Thunder Bay, Ontario. Number 3. Rochester, Minnesota. Rochester is a city in and the county seat of Olmsted County, Minnesota, United States. It is located along rolling bluffs on the Zumbro River's South Fork in southeast Minnesota. At the 2020 census, the city had a population of 121,395, making it Minnesota's 3rd most populous city. The Rochester metropolitan area, which also includes the nearby rural agricultural areas, had a population of 226,329 in 2020. The city is the home and birthplace of Mayo Clinic. Number 2. St. Paul, Minnesota. St. Paul, often abbreviated St. Paul, is the capital of the U.S. state of Minnesota and the county seat of Ramsey County. Situated on high bluffs overlooking a bend in the Mississippi River, St. Paul is a regional business hub and the center of Minnesota's government. The Minnesota State Capitol and the state government offices all sit on a hill close to the city's downtown district. One of the oldest cities in Minnesota, St. Paul has several historic neighborhoods and landmarks, such as the Summit Avenue neighborhood, the James J. Hill House, and the Cathedral of St. Paul. Like the adjacent city of Minneapolis, St. Paul is known for its cold, snowy winters and humid summers. According to census estimates, in 2022 the city's population was 303,176, making it the 67th most populous city in the United States, the 12th most populous in the Midwest, and the second most populous in Minnesota. Most of the city lies east of the Mississippi River near its confluence with the Minnesota River. Minneapolis is mostly across the Mississippi River to the west. Together, they are known as the Twin Cities and make up the core of the Minneapolis and St. Paul metropolitan area, the third most populous metropolitan area in the Midwest. The Legislative Assembly of the Minnesota Territory established the town of St. Paul as its capital near existing Dakota Sioux settlements in November 1849. It remained a town until 1854. The Dakota name for where St. Paul is situated is Iniseska for the White Rock Bluffs along the river. The city has 3 sports venues: Xcel Energy Center, home to the Minnesota Wild, and PWHL Minnesota, CHS Field, home to the St. Paul Saints, and Allianz Field, home to Minnesota United. St. Paul has a mayor and council government. The current mayor is Melvin Carter Roman III, who was first elected in 2018. Number 1. Minneapolis, Minnesota. Minneapolis is a city in and the county seat of Hennepin County, Minnesota, United States. With a population of 429,954, it is the state's most populous city as of the 2020 census. Located in the state's center near the eastern border, it occupies both banks of the Mississippi River and adjoins St. Paul, the state capital of Minnesota. Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the surrounding area are collectively known as the Twin Cities, a metropolitan area with 3.69 million residents. Minneapolis is built on an artesian aquifer on flat terrain and is known for cold, snowy winters and hot, humid summers. Nicknamed the City of Lakes, Minneapolis is abundant in water, with 13 lakes, wetlands, the Mississippi River, creeks, and waterfalls. The city's public park system is connected by the Grand Rounds National Scenic Byway. Dakota people originally inhabited the site of today's Minneapolis. European colonization and settlement began north of Fort Snelling along St. Anthony Falls, the only natural waterfall on the Mississippi River. Location near the fort and the fall's power with its potential for industrial activity fostered the city's early growth. For a time in the 19th century, Minneapolis was the lumber and flour milling capital of the world, and as home to the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, it has preserved its financial clout into the 21st century. A Minneapolis Depression-era labor strike brought about federal worker protections. Work in Minneapolis contributed to the computing industry, and the city is the birthplace of General Mills, the Pillsbury brand, Target Corporation, and Thermo King Mobile Refrigeration. The city's major arts institutions include the Minneapolis Institute of Art, the Walker Art Center, and the Guthrie Theater. 4 professional sports teams play downtown. Prince is survived by his favorite venue, the First Avenue nightclub. Minneapolis is home to the University of Minnesota's main campus. The city's public transport is provided by Metro Transit, and the International Airport, serving the Twin Cities region, is located towards the south on the city limits. Residents adhere to more than 50 religions. Despite its well-regarded quality of life, Minneapolis has stark disparities among its residents, arguably the most critical issue confronting the city in the 21st century. Governed by a mayor and council system, Minneapolis has a political landscape dominated by the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party (DFL), with Jacob Frey serving as mayor since 2018.